In the year 1506 of the Hywan calendar, Bahá'í. The port town, Spiatamoris. The site of the garbage disposal plant is the residence of the Don Quixote family. At this time, in the restaurant, Doflamingo was dining with a group of cotters, but a 10-year-old boy who was out of place stood in front of everyone. The boy's clothes were shabby, and he wore a plush hat with snow leopard spots on his head. The exposed parts of his body were pale in color, which was a symptom of contracting lead disease. His face was full of rebelliousness, and there was still blood on the corners of his mouth that had not been wiped dry, but he was dragged like a king here. His name is Trafalgar Law. This is a meeting. It has been a week since Luo came to the Don Quixote family with a bomb attached to his body and threatened to detonate himself. In order to kill more people in the only 3 years of his life left, the desperate young man stubbornly refused to leave in the face of Clausen's bullying. Until today, Dover agreed to meet. So what exactly do you hate? I don't trust anyone anymore. I want revenge. Facing the question, the young man spoke with a blank expression, his fierce eyes glared at the tall figure in the black feather coat sitting beside the main seat. At this time, Luo's heart was full of resentment and he didn't even know the fundamental reason why Clausen did this. Link, who was sitting beside him, watched this scene with a smile. Idiot, didn't you hear what you said before? Hearing Luo's wild remarks, before Dover opened his mouth, a little girl in a black dress with a bow on her head at the dining table was the first to sit still. I saw her pretending to be a little adult. Akimbo stepped forward, patted Luo Yi's head, shook her little head and warned loudly, if you dare to be disrespectful to the cotters, you will be severely tortured and pierced. If you want to rely on your child's ignorance, you will not be forgiven if you cry a few times and apologize. As a member of the Don Quixote family, although Baby5 is young, he has a sense of superiority to Luo, a new friend. Number dish, however, in exchange for the girl's warning, Luo turned around and glared fiercely. Woohoo! Under the vicious eyes, the girl didn't look like a little adult before. She was so frightened that she cried and ran to a 14-year-old handsome boy in a white coat, begging for comfort. Brother Link, he murdered me. He murdered me, woohoo! Reaching out and rubbing the girl's head, Link took out a candy from his pocket and handed it to the girl, making Baby5 burst into tears. Brother Link is the best. Eating candy, Baby5 smiled sweetly. Brother Link. Seeing this scene, Buffalo on the side immediately looked at Link eagerly. Link smiled and also handed out a candy. It has been 3 years since I traveled through this world. In the beginning, Link, like Buffalo and Baby5, were one of the 100 children adopted by the Don Quixote family. It's just that Link joined earlier, and as a traveler, he knows that this world is full of dangers. Even with extremely strong abilities, he didn't choose to leave arrogantly, but stayed. Because he knows that as a member of the family, as long as he doesn't betray Doflamingo, he can grow up safely here, and this is what Link needs. In the past 3 years, relying on the knowledge he learned in his previous life, he became an inconspicuous but indispensable existence in the family. A doctor. The maturity far beyond his age and his tenderness to consider others have made Link the most popular member of the family, the big brother that the 2 children, Buffalo and Baby5, can rely on. Suddenly there was a sound. After comforting his 2 younger siblings, Link took the initiative to stand up and bring a piece of pasta in front of Luo and said, I'm already hungry, let's eat now. Luo looked at Link, took the pasta with both hands and devoured it. Compared to the indifference of other members of the Don Quixote family, Clausen's disgust. The experience of the past week has made Luo know that the young man in front of him is a gentle and kind person, and the only person who does not despise him. While eating, Dover's questioning was not over yet. However, this time Dover didn't ask Luo again, but looked at Link and said, Link, can your ability save Luo's lead disease? Can. When Link heard the words, he nodded and replied seriously, but my current ability is too weak to be completely cured. Hearing this, Luo Qimian's movements stopped, his eyes widened and he raised his head in surprise, looking at the handsome young man in a white coat in front of him, his face full of doubts. What did he hear? The other party actually said that the lead disease can be cured? Is he kidding? I am terminally ill. However, facing the doubtful expression on Luo's face, Link didn't care at all, and said in a plain and confident tone, Luo has 3 years to wait, and the biggest miracle in the world is the devil fruit. Young master, have you forgotten our business? Link smiled and turned to look at Dover. A miracle of devil fruit. As a businessman in the underground world, Dover's business is naturally easy to come into contact with devil fruits. Hearing Link's words at this moment, he nodded and said no more. You're lying to me, aren't you? I can't survive. After lunch, the family members went to work on their own, and Luo was arranged to follow Link to check his body. Walking behind Link, recalling what the other party said before, Luo couldn't help but speak. Why do you say that? Link put his hands in his pockets and looked at the boy beside him with a smile. Because the lead disease is a terminal illness that cannot be cured at all. Luo's eyes were full of gloom, and in his heart he still didn't believe that he could survive. Link raised his eyebrows, without explaining, to look at Luo Na's desperate little face and said, "Want to see my abilities?" Luo had an indifferent expression on his face. But then, under Luo's gaze, there was only shock in his eyes. I saw Link pick up an abandoned long knife from the ground, and the rusty long knife was smashed and disintegrated in the opponent's hand, leaving only a ball of liquid metal, and finally stretched like a magic, turning into a ball. A sharp, brand new dagger. Breaking down and refactoring, deciphering the essence of things and changing them to your heart's content. That's my ability, isn't it fun? Saying that, Link handed the dagger in his hand to Luo. This dagger will be given to you as a greeting gift. Is this your ability? Luo dazedly held the sharp dagger in his hand. The bright cold light couldn't see the original rusty appearance at all. This miraculous scene filled Luo's heart with shock, but he quickly thought of another point, and caught up with Link and asked, "Link, can your abilities be used against people?" "Certainly. Doesn't that mean?" The two who were going forward came to the outside of Link's hut. Luo's words just opened his mouth, but when he looked up, he saw the tall figure leaning against the hut. His face darkened instantly, and he clenched the dagger in his hand. Wearing a coat with jet black feathers, a shirt with cherry blossom petals, white trousers, and a clown-like purple eyeshadow and lip gloss smeared under the blood-colored hood, Krasin looked at Link blankly, his eyes indifferent. Klasin. When the enemy met Luo, his heart was angered, and his teeth were itchy. However, in the face of Luo's anger, Krasin simply chose to ignore it, and just showed a note to Link. "Let's talk. Luo, wait at the door, I'll talk to Mr. Krasin about something." Link was not surprised when he saw this, nodded and instructed Luo, and led Krasin into his hut. Bang! The next moment the door was closed. Silence unfolds. Clausen's dissatisfied question came from Link's ear. "Link, do you know what you are doing? Why did Dover keep this child?" Link laughed when he heard this. "Because he is a child of the D family." "What?" Facing the question, Link's answer was beyond Krasin's expectations. Krasin didn't expect to get this answer, his eyes widened and he stumbled to the ground in shock. His embarrassed appearance made his clown face look funny, not serious at first. How could it be such a coincidence? He is the same as you. Who can't have a hidden identity, can't they? Although my identity is fake." Facing Krasin's surprise, Link shrugged. As a traverser, Link naturally knew Krasin's true identity. It is precisely because of this that when Krasin was sent back to the Don Quixote family by the Warring States as an undercover agent 2 years ago, Link took the initiative to contact the other party under the identity of the D family, and successfully won the other party's trust. It was even more so that he got on the line with the Warring States period, or in other words, he had a relationship with the Navy. Although he is a member of the Don Quixote family, Link will leave sooner or later. It is important to establish a good relationship with the Navy in advance. Seeing Krasen's unbelievable look on his face at this time, Link stretched out his hand and pulled him up, nodded and said, "Of course. It's precisely because I saw this that I wanted to keep him." "But, didn't you see the hatred of this world in the eyes of that child?" With a sullen face, Clausen said to Link with a serious face, ignoring the nosebleed from the fall. Krasen saw the shadow of Dover from Luo, which made him very worried about the appearance of another demon, especially when Luo's fierce appearance was covered with bombs when he first met, which was a good illustration of this. His heart was full of resentment towards the world. "Ha ha ha, that's why I have to keep him by my side to train him and let him correct his evil." Link looked at Krasen and blinked. "Training?" Krasen was in a hurry. "Is this a matter of training?" "Don't worry, I will arrange it. Don't talk about this." Krasen still wanted to argue, but Link did not give the other party a chance and changed the subject. "You came just in time, and I need your help next. It's 1507 years old, and I have to get ready to go to the Chambord Islands. My wife, ahem. There are still important things to do." A week later. Right. Luo, do you think Brother Link's ability is very powerful?" Baby5 crossed his hands and nodded smugly with his eyes closed, as if it was not Link but her who was praised by Luo at this time. On the high of the garbage factory, Luo and Baby5 sat side by side, chatting excitedly while watching the sea in the distance. It had been a week since that day's meeting, and Dover finally let Luo stay. With the tragic past of the White Town, Rona's hateful eyes made Dover very satisfied, not to mention the help of Link. As children of the same age, Baby5 and Buffalo quickly accepted Luo after learning about Luo's past, and Link, the most familiar of the three, became their common topic. Luo reached out and held the brand new dagger that Link gave him, and nodded in approval. "It feels amazing and scary, especially being able to use it on people is so powerful. I can't imagine the enemy will be broken into pieces when facing Link." "Ha ha ha ha, you don't know that." Hearing Luo's words, Buffalo said, "Brother Link wouldn't do that, he's a doctor, eh?" "Researchers." Baby5 answered proudly, "Since we met Brother Link, he has never used his abilities to kill anyone. I heard him say that his abilities are only used for better research. As a doctor, he doesn't like killing people or fighting. I can't understand. Why don't you kill people if you have such a strong ability?" Luo Vinian rolled his eyes and said bitterly, but when he thought of the appearance of Link's handsome and gentle elder brother in his mind, he nodded, "But also, as a doctor, weakness is weakness." "Weak?" Pucci hearing Luo's words, Baby5 and Buffalo looked at each other, covered their mouths and snickered, looking at Luo with a strange expression. "Why are you looking at me like this, isn't it? What kind of expression do you have?" Luo looked surprised, and the dead fish eyes stared at the two of them fiercely. "Humph! Then you guessed wrong." Baby5 raised his head proudly, talking about Link's affairs with great pride. "Don't look at Brother Link as a doctor, his strength is not weak at all. Young masters say that Brother Link is a genius. Brother Link studied with the four major cotters of the family, but he started to master the domineering study early, and he was determined to be the heir to the cotter." Buffalo said excitedly. "Brother Link is amazing. Although he doesn't like fighting, let alone killing people, his strength is not weaker than others, especially his ability is too strong." Baby5 said as an example. "If Brother Link uses his ability to protect himself, only the four major cotters or the young master can win. So smart." Hearing what the two of them said, Luo's mouth was wide open and his face was incredulous. He knew the strength of the rest of the Don Quixote family. As a well-known pirate family in the North Sea, every member of Don Quixote is an elite. Not to mention, the Baby5 around him is as big as himself, a coward, but he is also capable of weapon fruit. Ordinary gangsters and pirates are not her opponents at all. And now I heard what she said, that Link, who was wearing a white coat and was sunny and beautiful, as a doctor, could still have such strength. This is too exaggerated. To know that the other party is only 4 years older than me. Are all researchers so weak? Thinking of this, Luo was really shocked. He, do you know how powerful it is? Baby5 looked at Luo's surprised jaw and patted him on the shoulder proudly and said, "Don't worry, Brother Link is so bad now, it will definitely be worse in a few years. Luo, your illness is definitely not bad. Problem. Right, Buffalo?" "Yes." Buffalo nodded with a smile, "Brother Link is amazing. Don't worry, Luo. Can you really survive?" Seeing the confident smiles on the faces of the two little friends, Luo clenched the dagger in his hand tightly, an inexplicable emotion surged in his heart, and finally nodded in agreement, "It is good." At the same time, in Link's hut, when the 3 little dogs were chatting happily about Link, their powerful brother Link had just finished a busy ability test. Because of his rapid growth, Link has always maintained the habit of testing his abilities every once in a while. At this time, he was holding a small stone knife in his hand. The blade of the entire knife was rough and had no blade at all, but it was such a toy-like stone knife, which made Link's face show an excited smile. Because the stone knife in his hand is made of halo stone. Yes, Link found out. His decomposition ability can play a role in halo stone. Perhaps it was because his abilities were not brought by the devil fruit. Link found that whether it was the sea rock or the sea water, it had almost no effect on him. This is undoubtedly good news for Link, because it means that he does not have the weakness of most capable people. It can even be used in turn to restrain the enemy. Wiping the sweat on his forehead, he tried his best to calm his heavy breathing. Even if he was exhausted by this time, Link couldn't take a rest and wrote records in the notebook on the desk. The decomposition and reconstruction attempt of Halo Stone was successful. The decomposition difficulty is 50 times that of ordinary stones. The hardness is extremely high, the essence is extremely difficult, the reconstruction difficulty is normal, and the overall level of control is low. Although it is difficult, it is foreseeable that the speed and degree of decomposing and reconstructing sea towers will increase again as the strength increases. The concept of Halashi weapons and Halashi clothing is entirely possible. It's exciting to think about it. Putting down the stone knife in his hand, Link's eyes were bright as he finished writing the record, and he closed his eyes and leaned back on the chair with a sigh of relief. In the past 3 years, with the improvement of his strength, Link's decomposition ability has also been continuously strengthened. By now, it is common for him to rub his hands with weapons in battle, and even with the advantage of the terrain, he can do many exaggerated big moves, but he has never shown it as a weak doctor. Ordinary material deconstruction has made him uninterested, and now his goal is directly on the magical energy changes such as hydrating ice, igniting fire, and creating thunder. As a scientific researcher, Link naturally understands that the essence of these phenomena is particle motion, which can be achieved through physical decomposition and reconstruction. However, for him now, this undoubtedly has a long way to go. At that time, with one hand, the reconstructed energy thunder, flames, and freezing emerge endlessly to smash the enemy, and with the other hand, the energy is decomposed and invincible. Thinking about it makes me feel arrogant. Link. While Link was thinking about the future happily, Krasen's voice sounded outside the door. Dover has decided to officially enter the Great Route. Hey? Has it been decided yet? When are you going? When Link heard the words, he turned his head to look, and Klassen appeared at the open door, holding a cigarette in his mouth. After 3 days, the business needs to be gradually transferred. 3 days later, I know. Link nodded and replied. After Link's conversation with Krasen a week ago, he let Krasen influence Dover to speed up the progress of entering the Great Route. In fact, this is also in line with Dover's consideration. The Don Quixote family is already the largest pirate family in the North Sea. If the business of the underground world wants to expand further, it must choose to enter the Great Route. And Link, he doesn't care about this, what he cares about is to let Krasen facilitate his purpose of going to Chambord. Link, are you really not considering joining the Navy? Leaning against the door, Clausen looked at Link in the room, exhaled the smoke from his mouth, and couldn't help but persuade. For the talented young man in front of him, Clausen is very optimistic. Even though he had seen many evil spirits in those years in the Navy, he had never seen a young man with both scientific research talent and strength like Link. This is an all-rounder. Give it up, Krasen. However, Link refused very simply, without any hesitation. I won't join any major forces, don't persuade me. Haven't you ever thought of saving more people, or benefiting the world? With your talent and ability, you can definitely make the world. Krasen was still unwilling. Stop, stop. Hearing Krasen's words, Link looked sideways, and quickly blocked Krasen's words. I don't want to be kidnapped by morality, I only represent myself, okay? Join forces? Then there is no freedom to speak of. Change the world? Even more joking. I, Link, are not such a great person. Even if he was called a genius, even if he was 14 years old, he had already mastered domineering. Even if his strength was comparable to that of a cotter, Link always felt that his talent was better than his own. And he is not a person who advocates violence, and has never liked fighting. Dominate the world? No interest, that's the job of an ambitious person. Punish evil and promote good? Tired or not, it's okay to touch the tube. As for what lofty ideals, changing the world for a better tomorrow? Don't make fun of him, he's just not that temperament, so where did he do great things? From the beginning to the end, Link's thoughts when he came to this world were very simple. Traveling on the vast sea, eating delicious food, sticking with beautiful girls, and marrying the Empress as his wife. Live well, live comfortably, and do what you want to do. Isn't it a good day to live? Why are you so tired? Certainly. Link is very clear that all this needs a foundation, that is, strong strength. Without strength, talking about freedom of shit, doing what you want to do is all fake. This is also the fundamental reason why Link still works hard to learn domineering, kendo, medicine, and his research ability even if he hates fighting. Thinking of the sea kings who can engulf giant ships, the great swordsmen who can slash the sea with one blow, and the 4 emperors who can change the world, Link feels that he is really too insignificant. Now he can't even stop 1% of their strength. Thinking about it this way. I'm too weak. Link couldn't help sighing again. Listening to Link's sigh, the corners of Krasen's mouth twitched when he thought of Link's strength. Is this guy speaking human words? Wait for my news about going to Chambord to establish a base. Taking a deep breath, holding back the urge to do it, Krasen left those words and left. March 1507 in the Highwind calendar. Next to a large island in the first half of the Great Route, a flamingo-shaped pirate ship docked at the port. At this time, in a deserted area outside the town, 2 figures were fighting fiercely. Zhang! The sound of the breaking wind came, and Link, who rushed forward quickly, slashed through the air and slashed towards Doflamingo. Well, it's a good time. In the face of Link's attack, Dover's face was filled with excitement. Chong! The jet-black long knife collided with Dover's armed pointed shoes, sending out the explosion of metal collision. The tall Dover was wearing a shirt, floral pants, a pink feather shawl, short blonde hair like a steel needle, and a pair of sunglasses with his hands in his pockets, with a reckless and domineering aura. The invisible coercion and domineering arrogance revealed from him, full of a soul-sucking sense of oppression. And stood opposite him. Link's body is well proportioned. Now he is 15. He is close to 1.8 meters. He wears the same shirt and black trousers, and wears a white coat. He holds a long knife in a straight posture. Handsome. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. It has been half a year since we entered the Great Route. With the crazy expansion of Dover's business, the name of Joker in the underground world is already showing signs of rising. Under Link's intentional promotion, he further expanded his business network and headed to the center of the Great Shipping Route, the Chambord Islands, and the arrangement of establishing a stronghold at the gateway to the New World finally made Dover's heart move. This is undoubtedly a very important task, but Diamante and other cotters can't get away, and Krasen's offline rashness makes him uneasy. Naturally, this burden falls on Link, and everything is like it went as expected. This battle is Dover's test for Link. Chong! Clang! Clang! Blades and fists collide. Link did not give in between the domineering and taijutsu, this was just a warm-up. The next moment, Dover took the initiative. I saw a transparent silk thread appearing between his hands and 10 fingers, and it was stretched like a steel wire and controlled the silk thread to slam it down towards Link. Swish swish. 5-color line. Even cut. 10 transparent sharp thin lines generated by the ability ripped apart the air and attacked Link condescendingly. With the improvement of his strength, his ability is even stronger. At this time, Link also showed his abilities recklessly. Withdrawing the knife and turning around, facing the oncoming attack, Link stretched his left hand forward, and with his movements, the air in front of him began to fluctuate violently. Under Link's decomposition ability, the air began to compress and reconstruct, and the thick air that solidified continuously condensed into a semicircular air wall. Barrier. Air shield. The thin wire cutting made a chi-chi explosion on the air barrier, but it was never able to cut in. In fact, Link had been looking forward to this battle for a long time. In the past 6 months, Link's strength has grown rapidly at an astonishing rate. Not to mention that his kendo strength has reached the level of a swordsman, and he has begun to learn the skills of entanglement. While he wanted to see what his strength level was after using his abilities, he also wanted to find out the bottom of Dover, the domineering guy who had awakened the tyrannical look. After all, Link clearly knew that the powerful strength displayed by the awakening of the Dover fruit after many years was definitely one of the top powerhouses in the sea, and he could also have contact with the generals. And in the near future, he is destined to fight against Dover in order to break away from the Don Quixote family. At this time, a heat-in collision with Dover is an advance rehearsal. Step. Bang. Stepping on the ground with one step, Dover's figure hurried forward, his right hand pulled back while he stepped on the air shield fiercely, and dozens or hundreds of thin threads were twisted and weaved between his palms, converging into a giant python-like long whip. After throwing his hand out, he slashed towards Link. The long whip shaped like a giant python carries an amazing momentum, like a living creature, the snake kisses and wants to choose someone to devour. It seems that the enemy can be completely torn apart in the next moment. Link's body crouched down, facing the attacking long whip without the slightest panic. After clenching the long sword with both hands again and charging for a while, the blade covered with the armed color trembled with a swipe, a huge blade training. Cut out. The flying horses pierced the air, but didn't make any sound. The silent sword light seemed to decompose and cut everything it faced. Super Strike Whip. Molecular Cutting. The two attacks just collided in midair, and there was no astonishing loud noise as expected. The moment the giant python-like whip in Dover's hand collided with the sword light, the sturdy snake body was cut in half as if it was cut in half, and the sword light carrying Link's decomposition ability slashed in 2 pieces. The huge thin-line snake body disintegrated into 2 sections and fell to the ground with a bang, smashing the ground, blowing up countless rubble and dust, and the 2 figures in the field were covered by the smoke and dust for a while. However, this is not over yet. Since Link decided to use his full strength, he would naturally not hesitate at all to activate the ability of the blade to insert into the ground while the long knife is being rotated. Wow! Just listen to the sound like running water hitting a stone. Huge thorns suddenly sprang up on the ground in front of Link, like mushrooms after rain, and the sharp thorns pointed directly at Brother Doflamingo, who was close to him. The ground under his feet stabbed sharply, and Dover jumped into the air with a grinning smile. The pink feather cloak behind him fluttered in the wind, his arms stretched out, and his whole body rushed towards Link like a bird of prey. In midair, Dover's stretched arms were connected with his fingers, and the transparent thin lines shot out like bullets, trying to pierce Link. Seeing this, Link hurriedly drew his knife and evaded, and the next moment, the long knife in his hand collided with the foot shaver kicked by Dover. Clang clang clang! The two figures collided again. Is this Link? This is too strong. It's really surprising that this kid went back and forth with the young master. On the sidelines, looking at the power of the battle between Link and Dover, the members of the Don Quixote family couldn't help but sigh. They couldn't believe that the guy in front of them was the gentle, sunny, and handsome guy they knew. Juvenile. In particular, they all know Link's abilities. They are only helping them treat their injuries as a ship doctor. This is the first time they have seen the opponent use it in battle. The attack that was as varied as a magic trick and as fierce as an assassin surprised them. With his eyes fixed on the two figures fighting on the field, Luo clenched his fists tightly, his body trembling and excited for inexplicable. He felt the trembling aura of Dover, which made him feel fear even when he was watching, and couldn't even raise the desire to fight. It was unimaginable how powerful Link, who faced Dover's terrifying aura, would be. Ha 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 ha! You can see Luo, Brother Link is amazing. It can be on par with the young master. Baby 5's face was flushed with excitement, jumping excitedly, shouting to show off to Luo next to him, his eyes full of worship. It's nothing special. In the future, I will be stronger than him. Luo stubbornly pouted, muttering that he did not want to admit it. Small a little. Talk big, and you won't be Brother Link's opponent in the future. Baby5 made a face at Chong Luo, not afraid of the other party's glaring eyes. Humph! Luo hummed dissatisfiedly. Although he refused to admit it, the strength displayed by Link and Dover in the battle left a deep shock in Luo's heart. This is the first time he has seen Link's true use of his ability to make a full shot, and his decomposition ability is constantly changing in Link's hands like the magic of good fortune. If the young master's strength is full of violence and swiftness, then Link represents changeable and omnipotent. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. There seems to be no shortcoming in Link's abilities, physical skills, and kendo. With his wisdom, even if Dover's strength is stronger, Link is not wrong at all. Really strong. At this time, he couldn't even touch the other side. Boom 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 boom. Watching Link rubbing the air cannon with his hands, another explosion sounded at Dover. In the dust, Diamante excitedly held his hands and looked at the black-haired boy in the field, and couldn't help but admire. It's really unexpected. This kid's abilities are really in perfect harmony with him. All kinds of means emerge at his fingertips, it's almost impossible to guard against. The fighting talent is even more sensitive, and the domineering and kendo grow rapidly. Originally, I thought that it would take at least a few years for him to be able to do things for the young master alone, but I didn't expect that his strength is so strong now. Hey, isn't that very good? Only in this way can we make more contributions to the young master's hegemony. Toripol, who was standing beside Diamante, said with a weird smile. Only with the ability of this kid can he truly become the right-hand man of the young master. Sika agreed with a thin voice. Ha 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 ha. For a while, several cotters laughed when they heard the words. Pft! Cough cough cough. On one side, Krasin almost couldn't hold back his laughter when he heard the words, and he choked on a cigarette until he bent over and coughed. I'm still my right arm, thinking about you a lot. Seeing the excited appearance of Toripol and the others, Krasin wanted to shout at them, this kid in front of him is a 25th boy. Looking at everyone's eagerly praised appearance, I just felt extremely funny. He had already begun to look forward to the moment when Link's counterattack would destroy Don Quixote. As the battle went on in the battlefield, the violent collision caused the ground debris on the field to splash, and it became more and more intense. Under the pressure of Dover's violent attack, Link did not dare to relax at all. To stab. Sinkhole. Burial. Air noose. Air cannon. Air cone gun. Air decomposition. Asphyxiation. In addition to using his abilities directly on Dover himself, Link frequently used his ability to decompose and reconstruct, constantly showing its versatility in battle. But even so, as the battle continued, Link's situation continued to deteriorate. A very serious problem has arisen. Physical exhaustion is too fast. Link's age is there. As a growth period, he is far from reaching the peak of his strength. Even if he uses his vision to use his abilities and skills, he still can't escape the shackles of a single force. Boom! Accompanied by Dover's full blast. Link couldn't dodge, and was kicked away by Dover's attacking kick, holding a long knife to stop his body, panting heavily. What Luo didn't know was that the momentum he felt was the invisible wisp of domineering that Dover evoked during the battle. At this time, Link, who was facing Dover, felt the growing power and sighed slightly in his heart. Is it really still close? This kind of aura that can make people tremble, is it a tyrannical look? The consumption of physical strength is still the biggest problem that affects me, and the ability cannot be fully exploded. However, it seems that the current Dover has not yet reached the level of fruit awakening. It is more troublesome for the Overlord to be domineering. If he does his best, it is not impossible to fight. Thinking of this, Link, who had achieved his purpose of probing, was about to stop. Looking at Brother Doflamingo, who strode towards him with an excited smile, Link stood up with a knife, wiped his face, looked at Dover and said with a smile, "Sure enough, the young master is still far ahead of his subordinates, but only I'm still unwilling to admit defeat like this. I still have one last shot." Dover didn't say much, and stood in place. Link tried his best to calm his breathing, looked sharply at Dover who was not far in front of him, lifted the long knife, and left an afterimage in the next moment, and his figure disappeared. This knife, I named it. Silently. Not even a whistle. The disintegration ability is like an invisible big hand pushing the air in front of him, eliminating the resistance and further accelerating Link's speed. Link's figure turned into lightning, and Doflamingo rushed in front of him almost out of touch. Step. Slash forward. Starlight. At the moment when Dover's heart stopped, Link's raised long blade slashed down with his movements. In Dover's eyes, Link's rapidity seemed to have turned into slow motion. He watched as the blade cut off in front of him began to disintegrate with the opponent's movements, shining and floating like stardust. Like a shining star in the clear night sky, turning into starlight and slashing towards him. Gorgeous and splendid. At this moment, Dover's pupil shrank, and he truly felt the danger of death. Diamante and the others, whose vision could barely keep up with this scene, didn't even have time to exclaim. There was no violent collision, and an invisible shock wave spread like a tsunami in an instant. 2 days later. On the boat to Chambord. Brother Link, just talk about it. What happened to your battle with the young master in the end? I just watched you disappear with a swoosh, and then with a thump, my head was stunned, and it hasn't come yet. I fainted when I saw it. In the cabin, BABY5 pouted, pestering Link, who was examining Luo's body, and asked, I asked everyone, and everyone said they fainted and didn't see it at all. I really want to know. Why are you following me? Chasing Link and asking questions is so annoying. Luo sat on the chair, frowning fiercely and looking at BABY5 with an unhappy face. What is fierce? BABY5 was so frightened that he hid in Link's white lab coat. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com hugged Link and shouted, I'm here to take care of you. Brother Link said he needed me, of course I'll come. And don't you want to know what happened in the end? The result of the battle between Brother Link and the young master. It's obvious that you are begging Bela to come. You are sticking to Link, and Buffalo didn't come. No. And I'm not curious. Link will definitely lose in the end. What's there to know? Luo glanced at Link, and there was nothing at all on his smiling face, and he stubbornly snorted to maintain his arrogance. He he he. When Baby5 heard this, he squinted at Luo, and Luo gritted his teeth with disdain. Okay, stop arguing. Link reached out and rubbed Baby5's head, stood up and said, it's just a sparring experience, it can't be called a battle. I'm just a doctor, I'll ask you to protect me in the future. Certainly. Hearing Link's words, Baby5 raised his head on his hips, raised his chest, and said in a high tone, Brother Link needs me, and I will definitely protect you in the future. Okay. I'll leave it to you then. Baby5 looks proud. I don't know who protects who. Luo muttered in dissatisfaction, looking at Baby5 with envy in his eyes, and said to Link with a straight face, Link. I want to learn from you, I want to become as strong as you. Looking at Luo's serious face, Link put his hands in the white coat, thought about it and said with a playful smile, of course you can. Thanks for watching, please subscribe. Link. What I want to learn is kendo, fighting, and I came to you to become stronger, not medical skills. The Blue Sea. On the deck of a small boat. The boy wearing the spotted hat clenched his fists, stared at the figure lying on the beach chair drinking juice with a pair of dead fish eyes, complaining angrily. It's been 3 months, and it's been 3 months since I went overseas. Apart from studying, you are studying, are you perfunctory me? Looking at Luo, who was in a state of exasperation in front of him, Link spread his hands with a smile and said innocently, but, Luo. You know very well that I am a doctor. Isn't it because you want a doctor to be a teacher to study medicine? Of course, if you really don't want to be with me, I suggest you go to Clausen, after all, he's the fighter on the ship. Isn't it? Dish, Luovinian glanced at Krasen, who was smoking while leaning on the bow of the boat, watching the play with a smile, his teeth gnashing his teeth. Since he left Dover 3 months ago and went to sea with Link, Clausen and Baby5, Luo took the initiative to find Link to study. But where would he have thought? I was deceived. And it was completely deceived. Link, this black-bellied and hateful guy, obviously has a strong body, but he always excuses himself as a doctor and asks him to follow him to learn medical skills. Only when his medical skills reach his satisfaction can he learn to fight with him. For 3 months, in order to study medicine such as surgery, herbal medicine, pathology, neurology, etc. He almost buried his head in the sea of books. Seeing that such a long time has passed, even the coward of Baby5, under Link's guidance, began to learn the ability of seeing and being armed and domineering, but he didn't even get any fur. How could he not be in a hurry? He. Looking at Luo's puffy face, Baby5 sitting on the edge of the boat swayed with his legs and covered his mouth and snickered, and comforted, don't worry, Luo, you will follow Brother Link to be a doctor in the future. That's good. When I become stronger, I will definitely cover you. Humph. Luovinian became even more angry, and glared at the gloating Baby5, thinking to himself that when he became stronger, he must clean up. Krasen. He's not stupid. If he shoots Baby5, Link will definitely take care of him. He snorted coldly, thinking of Link's promise to suppress his depression, turned around and prepared to go back to the cabin to continue his studies. He won't give up. Isn't that just studying medicine? He couldn't believe that he couldn't get Link's approval. Wait, Link. I'll make you recognize me, and then there's no reason not to teach it. Hey, what is that? What? Let me see. Seeing Luo, who was about to leave, Baby5 suddenly looked into the distance on the west side of the sea and seemed to have found something. The girl also turned around and leaned out to look. Not far from Link's boat, there is a broken wooden board the size of a person floating on the sea, and it looks like a person is lying on it. At the same time, the trace of Link's boat seemed to have attracted the other party's attention. I saw the young man lying on his back on the wooden board, raising the brim of his hat, and seeing the light of salvation in the eyes of the boat. Oh, screamed and swayed to his feet, waving to this side. With a big smile on his face, he didn't seem to be annoyed by his tragic experience at all. Link got up and went to the edge of the boat to look. He was slightly taken aback when he saw the figure, then the corners of his mouth twitched, and he couldn't help but chuckle. It's really interesting to meet him here. Pick up the opponent on the boat. The four of Link looked at the young man in front of them together. Ah! I'm finally saved. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I don't know how long it would have been. Ha ha ha. A white shirt, flared trousers, a long knife at his waist, a shaggy young man wearing a round straw hat, his fiery red hair is messy like a bird's nest. Raised his hand and scratched his head, showing his big white teeth and thanking Link and others with a smile. You're welcome, uncle. You have already asked me, and you can tell me if you need any help. I'm only 25 and I'm still not an uncle. However, thank you very much. When Baby5 heard the thanks, he was once again needed by others, and his happy eyes narrowed into slits. Krasen looked at the carefree young man in front of him, wondering in his heart that the person in front of him was familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere. Luo Xian, who was looking at the other side up and down, opened his mouth. The boy folded his arms, stared at the long knife on the other side's waist and asked in a cold tone, Uncle, you haven't said who you are yet? Why are you floating at sea alone? It's said that I'm not an uncle. I'm a pirate, you can call me Red-haired Shanks. Link said. Eh? You know me? Hearing this, Shanks blinked and looked at Link, slightly surprised. Is your reputation already so big? And if Shanks was suddenly called out by his name, he was a little dumbfounded, but Krasen, who was wondering who the person in front of him was, widened his eyes and opened his mouth wide, and the whole person was stunned. He knew the name of the red-haired Shanks. That is the great swordsman who resounds through the sea. A young and strong man who was praised by the New World Whitebeard. With disbelief and vigilance, he looked at Shanks in front of him. Krasen's expression was distorted, and he couldn't associate the sloppy guy in front of him with the three words great swordsman. Is this really a great swordsman who can fight Hawkeye? It's too fake. Shanks? Link, do you know this uncle? Luo asked curiously. Link nodded and said with a positive tone, very powerful, he is a strong man who can compete for the world's largest swordsman. Cough, ha ha ha, not so much. He? The world's greatest swordsman. Luo Vinian's eyes widened. You reading www.uuganshu.com pointed to Shanks and looked at Link, with the expression on his face, are you kidding me? Look of disdain. If this unfortunate uncle can become the world's #1 swordsman, why would he be so embarrassed? Don't be so fake if you lie to me. Saying that, Luo squinted at Shanks with a slanted look on his face, with an expression of disbelief that he needed to be beaten and beaten. Hey! Boy, don't look down on people. Hearing Link's words, Shanks was secretly complacent when he heard Luo's taunting, and he almost got a depressed expression. After all, he is also a great swordsman. Across the New World, the famous powerhouse at sea. This little brat is too arrogant. Uncle, you are in a shipwreck and have to be rescued. Luo fired. The first knife. That's the reason for force majeure, I can explain it. Shanks said with a serious face. I don't even have a younger brother by my side, I'm alone. Luo continued to make up for it. The second knife. Who said I didn't? I. Lo Shanks was talking with a stern face, when suddenly a thunderous sound came from his stomach, attracting everyone's attention. Well, that. After 2 days in the air, I didn't eat anything, just. Luo drove his hands, sighed like a little adult, shook his head, and looked up at Link. In those small eyes, 2 big words seemed to be added. That's it. The third knife. Pfft. Shanks vomited blood and looked at Luo with a black line on his face. Thanks for watching, please subscriber. Shanks was scarred by Luo Dao, and his whole body was not well. Watching this scene, it almost didn't make Link laugh out loud. He couldn't be happy. It was a surprise that Luo was so capable of stabbing knives. But anyway, Shanks' strength is there. At this time, although he hasn't reached the level of being the 4 emperors in more than 10 years, his level of great swordsman is not a joke. Now on this ship, Link knows that he is weak and sick. Even if he shoots together, he doesn't know if it will be enough for the opponent. After playing around for a while and giving Krasen a reassuring look, Link took Shanks to a full meal in the restaurant. Then everyone learned from Shanks the reason why he was floating on the sea alone, so miserable. This starts from the sea area where Link and the others are at this time. They are now in the waters of the 7 islands of water, connecting the Spring Queen City St. Pablo, Gourmet City Pukki, Carnival City Sanfalud, and the nearest island in front is the shipbuilding island. That is, the place known as the Water City in later generations, is only 2 days away. And according to Shanks, the reason why the boat he was carrying collapsed was because it encountered a super tsunami that was far beyond imagination and covered the sky. Hearing this, Link immediately thought of the tsunami that the shipbuilding Icelanders called the God of Water. This is a terrifying natural disaster tsunami. That terrifying Tianwei is almost able to submerge the entire island. Hearing Shanks' remarks, Link looked at the other party with a momentary daze, and he had to admit that the sloppy man in front of him who was arguing with Luo was terrifying. Now, he would never survive a tsunami like this at sea. The palpitation caused by facing the huge waves hundreds of meters high like the sky would really destroy a person's courage. And the other party is not only living well, but now he can laugh and scold without caring. Can't help but let Link sigh, as expected of a man who can awaken the Overlord and become the Emperor of the Sea. In that case, we were lucky enough to escape. After returning to his senses, Link sighed, looked at Shanks and asked, but then again, why did Captain Shanks appear here alone? Where is your red-haired pirates? Believe it now, brat, my strength is still very powerful. Humph! Shanks raised his eyebrows proudly at Luo, and said to Link with a smile, well, the main thing is that there is an old man I like on the shipbuilding island who wants to invite them to board the ship, so I let them stay in Chambord and land the ship. Coding, I'll take a hard run. It just so happens that you guys also passed by shipbuilding island, so give me a ride. Shanks could see that there were only 4 people on this boat, and the one who was really in charge was not the blonde man with black feathers who said nothing, but the young boy in front of him who didn't look big in a white coat. Not very old, seems to be only 17 or 18. Looks like a doctor. And there are 4 people and 2 children in a boat, so it's not a pirate boat, right? Shanks pondered in his heart, but felt that the 4 people in this ship were very strange. Has Shanks invited anyone on shipbuilding island? Why didn't I know? Who will it be? And the red-haired pirates are in Champu, so coincidental? But since we've all met, hee. When Shanks was curious about Link and others, Link was also thinking about how he arranged for the big fat sheep with red hair who came to the door. Joke. I was still worrying about how I would get into a relationship with old man Rayleigh after I went to the shampoo land. Isn't this relationship coming now? Not to mention, Shanks in front of him is a big swordsman with domineering and kendo skills. If he doesn't take advantage of this, Link will feel sorry for his luck. Thinking of this, Link showed a sunny smile. What a coincidence. Our destination is Chambord, drop by. 2 days later, when Link and his party arrived at Shipbuilding Island, Shanks and Link became familiar with each other. In the past 2 days, Link asked the other party from time to time about the use of domineering. And after Luo heard that Shanks was really a great swordsman, he still refused to admit that in addition to studying medicine with Link, he was bickering with Shanks. In other words, Shanks has a bold temperament. He doesn't care, he doesn't know if he is compatible with Luo Xiaozi, and the relationship between the two of them is getting better and better. The ship docked at the port, Krasen went to contact the supplies afterward, and the four of Link were hanging out on the shipbuilding island that spread across the waterway. The structure of the shipbuilding island is somewhat special, not like other flat shapes, but like a huge fountain. The whole has a high-level drop, and the waterways are quite complicated. In addition to the transportation on the flat water surface, there are also waterways extending down from the height of the shipbuilding island. After experiencing the gods of water, a few people walked, and they could see houses washed away by the tsunami, dilapidated facilities, messy roads, and people busy with rescue. Even after a few days, they could still see the chaos. It's just that everything has two sides. The tsunami brought huge damage to the shipbuilding island, and also brought unique products, leaving a high concentration of sea salt on the eaves of each house. This is a material that belongs to the 7 islands of water, and it is absolutely delicious when combined with the local specialty shui shui meat. Good time. Brother Link, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com. This meat is good time. Baby5 bit the juicy food in his hands with a contented face. Well. Woohoo. Luo Man's mouth was drumming. Ha ha ha, this is a famous specialty of Shipbuilding Island, you can't eat it anywhere else. Shanks tasted delicious wine and barbecued meat. A group of 4, walking and strolling. Hey, Uncle Shanks. Who is the old man you want to invite? Why are you going astray? Seeing that Shanks didn't say his destination, he led them through the bustling streets. As he headed westward to the island, the surrounding streets became more shabby and chaotic. Luo couldn't help but ask. Ha ha ha. The person I brought you to meet is a famous man. The world's #1 shipbuilder. The world's #1 shipbuilder. Luo Vinian suddenly became curious. And when he heard Shanks' words, Link suddenly realized at this moment and understood who Shanks was looking for. Murloc Tom, the pirate King Roger's ship Oro Jackson, the creator of the sea train. However, I haven't seen floating rails on the sea before. It seems that Tom probably hasn't researched the sea train yet. Also, as a fishman, I don't know if he has any connection with Fishman Island. While Link was thinking, a tall figure wearing a robe and a hood to cover his figure walked past him with his head down. In a hurried glance, the eyes of the two met for a moment. Link saw a pair of cold eyes as clear as autumn water, and a strand of white hair blown by the wind. This is a girl he has never seen before. P.S. Guess what? You will never guess. Link was stunned for a while, and his intuition told him that the girl walking by his side was a little unusual. But when he turned his head to look again, the other party had already turned into the alley on the other side and disappeared. What's the matter, Link? When Shanks saw Link stop, he returned to ask. Link shook his head and said nothing. As the 4 of them walked forward, when the garbage dump appeared in front of the 2 of them, Luo looked at the abandoned ship, the piles of scrap iron weapons, the waterway flowing with sewage, pinched his nose and said to Shanks in a dissatisfied tone, Shanks, are you sure the world's #1 shipbuilder will live here? It's worse than a beggar's place. Ouch! Ouch! Hey, stinky brat! Are you here to provoke? You'd better keep your mouth clean, or believe it or not, the gun in my hand doesn't have eyes. Before Shanks could answer, a little blue-haired gangster with goggles on his head and covered with all kinds of machinery on a hill made of scrap iron and wood not far away from the few people. Dalila sat there upright. The other party knocked on the iron frame beside him with a strange modified pistol, and looked at Link and the others with a stern face, his tone full of vigilance and threats. What? Luovinian looked and saw this blue-haired young man, who was not a good thing at first sight, folded his arms with his arms, and stared at the other party with unruly eyes. So arrogant, is this your territory? Those eyes seemed to be provocative cockfighting. Damn guy! Are you threatening us? Don't underestimate the pirates. Seeing the other party's flamboyant appearance, BABY5 was also angry, raised his small hand and directly transformed into a large-caliber artillery cannon, shouting, "Don't think that you have weapons. We are not vegetarians." Humph! Seeing that a little girl in BABY5 turned into a cannon in the blink of an eye, Carter Fram was also surprised, but he quickly recovered. I saw Fram's face gloomy, and while raising the pistol in his hand, the other hand pressed a button in his arms, and several garbage dumps around suddenly made a clattering sound, and many automatic weapons appeared in an instant. Link ETL. Pirates, you are not welcome here. I advise you to leave before I press the button and turn you into a hornet's nest. The old man Tom was driven to the garbage dump because of the pirates, and the irascible Fram would not have the slightest fondness for these villains who could only burn, kill, and loot. The reason why he didn't shoot directly was because he didn't want to be talked about by that guy in Aspagu afterwards. Fram's sudden burst made the two little ones furious, and the two of them wanted to go up and clean each other up while yelling. What a joke! When were they threatened by the gangster? No matter how young they are, anyway, the strength of the two little ones is not a threat to anyone, but Link raised his hand and stopped them. Because he recognized the young man in front of him. Isn't this guy now called Carter Fram one of Tom's disciples, Frankie, the transforming man who later became a road crewman? Looking at Fram with a gloomy face at this time, Link explained warmly, "Sir, this is a misunderstanding. In fact, we came to visit Mr. Tom, and the Shanks next to me is an acquaintance with him." Well, that's right. Shanks touched his chin, took the conversation and grinned, "If you know old Tom, maybe you can show us the way." Just when Link and Fram met, watching the irritable and arrogant young man of this future transforming pervert, a special ship docked at the port of Shipbuilding Island. This is the ship of the world government. At this time, two men in black suits descended from it. One of them is tall and sturdy, wearing a pair of black gloves, an open suit with a tattoo of evil eyes on the chest, pink messy hair, golden earrings, and a cigarette in his mouth. Extremely wild. And if the tall man is flamboyant and reckless like a fierce tiger, the young man following him is the exact opposite of him. This is a calm and patient cheetah. The exquisite suit was decent, and he wore a black top hat to cover his curly black hair. His face was expressionless, and his eyes showed indifference. At such a young age, he seemed like a deep pool where he couldn't see the waves. If Link was here, he might be able to recognize the two. Rob Lucci and Foz Fu. A genius agent who is called the strongest man in 800 years at his age and the strongest agent with the form of fauna, cat fruit, ancient species, and saber-toothed tiger. They are all from CP9, the secret service organization within the world government. Not to mention the strength of Rob Lucci, the strength of Foz Fu, who has the form of an ancient saber-toothed tiger, must not be underestimated. The physical enhancement brought by the opponent's fruit alone cannot be compared with ordinary animal fruits. You must know that in the future, this guy who betrayed the world government became a pirate and joined the Kaido pirates. He became one of the true fight-flying Six Kingdoms, with a bounty of more than 500 million Baileys to challenge the three major disasters with confidence. The powerhouse. At this time, two people who can be called the strongest agents in CP9 appeared here. It is foreseeable that their tasks are not easy. Not long ago, the organization received news that a wanted criminal hunted by the world government appeared on Shipbuilding Island. The other party's iconic white hair attracted the attention of CP9 intelligence personnel. As the race that the government's experimental project focuses on, it is one of the wanted criminals with powerful fruit ability, and the value of the other party can be imagined. The reason why the two are here is for each other. Phosphoo put his hands in his pockets and looked up. After the tall fountain landscape in the center of the shipbuilding island, he said to Rob Luigi, who was beside him, "According to the information, the goal of this mission is to capture her alive, and the government attaches great importance to her. You'd better restrain your temper and don't make too much noise. It's just an experimental subject. Isn't her ability very strong? It's okay if she can't kill her." Rob Luigi replied coldly without showing any respect to the senior beside him. "And if this woman hadn't been difficult to deal with, she wouldn't have sent you to cooperate with me." Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Cooperating with you. Phosphoo glanced at the other party, frowned and sneered. He doesn't like this guy around him who has been arrogant and domineering since he joined the organization, especially as the original ace of CP9. His pride is even more unpleasant to see Rob Lucci. This guy may have some strength, but he is simply too arrogant. He just needs to clean up. Don't you know how to respect your seniors? Stinky bastard. I hope you won't be beaten to death by that woman. I'm afraid that at that time, I won't even have a chance to collect your corpse for you, and it will turn into a handful of black ashes. Facing Phos's taunting, Liu Qi did not reply, but raised his legs and walked away. Although it is said that the two are fighting each other, there is no doubt that both of them are aware of the fact that the biggest reason why the organization sent them to the shipbuilding island instead of letting others come is that they target the woman. Value. The existence of the opponent cannot be spread out, and the strength of the opponent is not something that ordinary members can deal with. Most importantly, she must not be allowed to explode into full form. If it really comes to that time, even if the other party is already restricted, even if the other party loses their memory, they will definitely not be opponents. In the end, it is even very likely that the entire island will be destroyed, and the irreversible result caused by that time is definitely not something they can afford. Fortunately, by surprise, when they knew the identity of the other party and attacked, they still had the opportunity to use the seafloor stone to subdue the other party. And the block where the other party is located is exactly the location close to the garbage dump. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. 100, 200, 300, 500, 700 Bailey. In the dark alley, where the sun can't shine, a tall girl with a hood bent her knees and squatted on a pile of abandoned wooden boxes. A strand of long white hair hangs down from her ear, revealing the hood, and the girl counts the coins on the wooden box in front of her. Some of the 7 old coins are all her property. 700 Baileys. The girl pouted in distress. She knew that she was going to starve again. 700 Baileys could only afford the hardest black bread, and she had to save it. Especially since her body is still very special, she eats a lot, thinking of the painful days when she was hungry before. Hey, you can, cheer up Lilith. The girl shook her head vigorously, throwing away the bad memories, put away the 7 precious Baileys left in front of her, and took out the brown bread she bought earlier from her bosom. Struggling to gesture in the middle of the bread, the girl finally gave up the decision to tear off half of it, and only tore off a third of the bread, less than half the size of a palm, and ate it. The taste of rough and inferior brown bread is very poor, hard and dry, and even has a frosted feeling in the entrance, not to mention the taste. This is the food belonging to the bottom people and even the poor. However, even so, the girl did not frown at all, and it was difficult to swallow the thought. For a homeless person, every meal is worth taking seriously. Squatting there, the girl swayed and tore off the bread little by little and stuffed it into her mouth, like a little white rabbit chewing food earnestly and quietly. Meow, meow. A low-pitched cat meow came from behind the wooden box beside him, attracting the girl's attention. The girl turned her head to look, and saw a small grayish-yellow kitten leaning out of the corner and yelping softly at her, her small eyes staring at the stranger in front of her. With curiosity, vigilance, and longing in his eyes, he made a nasal milky meowing sound. Meow, Meow 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 meow. The girl seemed to understand the words of the kitten. She learned the meowing of the kitten, and her sweet voice made a nice sound. I don't know what she thought of. Her face showed a sweet smile, like a cold frost, opened by the warm sun of spring. Are you hungry too? Come here and I'll give you some. As the girl said, she tore off some of the brown bread in her hand, and put the torn crumbs in the palm of her hand and handed it out. The kitten seemed to understand the girl's words, or maybe she felt her tenderness, so she leaned forward cautiously and gently licked her palm. Hee, it's a little itchy. Eat slowly meow meow. There's only one left, and I don't have much. There really isn't much, greedy little guy. She pursed her lips, and the girl didn't talk much. She was only willing to eat a piece of bread that was less than one third of the size, but she tore off the bread and handed it out under the coquettishness of the kitten. The girl reached out and stroked the kitten's fur, feeling the happy mood of the kitten. Suddenly, a female cat staggered onto the wooden box. Googum! When the mother cat saw the girl in front of her, her hair instantly exploded, and she made a warning cry in her throat. The kitten looked up when she heard the sound, meowing excitedly, jumping close to the other party, leaning her head on the other party's body, and making a nasal sound as if she was talking to her mother. After listening to the kitten's story, the mother cat finally stopped frying her fur and looked at the girl nervously. She stuck out her tongue and licked the kitten's fur. It's great, you have a mother. The girl watched this scene silently, with envy and longing in her eyes, and hugged her knees tightly. Because this is an experience she has never had. The mother cat seemed to sense the girl's emotions, and limped towards the girl with the kitten. It had just experienced the battle, and when it failed, not only did it fail to get food, but it was covered in injuries to one hind leg, and it was impossible to make it force. But it tried hard to come to the girl's side and rubbed its head with its head. It just crouched beside the girl and seemed to want to pass on its warmth to the other party. The girl was stunned, the sadness in her heart was diluted, a happy smile appeared on her face. She reached out and stroked the other person and said, "Thank you." With the girl's movements, her fair and slender palm and fingertips ignited a layer of faint fire, but it was not scorching hot. The only thing that gave the female cat was warmth. The fingertips brushed its wound, brushed its injured leg, a magical scene appeared, the wound on the female cat healed after the flame, the pain on her body disappeared, and the injured leg also healed. Standing up and walking back and forth, she turned her head and glanced at her hind legs. The recovered mother cat had gratitude in her eyes, meowing and coquettishly at the girl, rubbing her head and body against each other. Right here. Yes, it's this woman. I've seen it before. There is only one top-level good guy, and it's definitely worth the money. With suppressed excitement came from the entrance of the dark alley, and two undisguised greedy eyes looked at the girl in the alley. The girl looked up and saw two malicious figures, one tall and one short, came towards her. These were two human traffickers who specialized in human trafficking. The tall man was stunned for a moment when he saw the girl's face. He swore that even the most noble the island would not be as amazed by the girl in front of him. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. That kind of tenderness that provokes tyranny, and the coldness that cannot be concealed even by a coarse cloth robe, cleverly combined with the girl in front of him, making his heart beat faster, and the flames of greed and desire are as high as being ignited by a demon. Hey, I advise you not to run, I don't want to hurt you. Holding a dagger, the man shouted at the girl, licking his lips that were dry from excitement. He knew that he really had luck this time. The girl did not run. Lilith stood up, her pretty face lost the childishness and smile she had before, and there was not a trace of fear in her black eyes, only an icy chill. When the two traffickers met this look, they shivered for some reason, and had a bad premonition. But the greed for huge profits drove them forward, and before they had time to react the next moment, they saw the girl jump down like a cat that has always been dexterous, rushing forward. Click! Click! Thump, a huge force struck, and two crisp bone-crossing sounds sounded. Lilith released her hands that clenched the opponent's neck, and the two corpses fell to the ground with a look of horror in her eyes. Crouching down, she searched the arms of the two, only to find a few hundred Baileys. Lilith pouted and stood up. Poor ghost! The angry girl stuck out her tongue, turned to look at the cats on the abandoned wooden box, one big and one small, looking up at her, smiled, stretched out her hand and waved, and walked out. Goodbye. Bowing her head and turning around, Lilith held back the smile that curled up at the corner of her mouth, put on an indifferent mask and left. She is a lonely traveler, and this is just a momentary warmth when the traveler is tired. Thanks for watching, please subscriber. Goo ha 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 ha, I didn't expect that the noisy kid back then has become a famous man. Shanks. Tom is not an old-fashioned person, and at the same time, as a Murloc, he has the idea of being close to human beings, which can be seen from the fact that he was able to adopt Espagu and Fram. As for the arrival of the Four of Link, the visit of his old friend made him seem very happy. He crossed his hips and laughed, reaching out to pat Shanks on the shoulder vigorously. The thumping sound made Link worry about whether Shanks would be slapped down. I haven't seen each other for at least 10 years, old man, your belly is getting bigger and bigger. Mother-in-law Kokolai and Espagu have not seen each other for a long time. Seeing a familiar figure, Shanks also showed a happy smile on his face, and took the initiative to introduce someone to Link and the others. So tall. So big. Grandpa Tom, are you going to eat a cow in one meal? Baby-5 looked up at the tall Murloc with a height of nearly 3 meters and a waist of 2 meters, and his tone was full of surprise. With such a big body, it should be very powerful. Luo spread out his hands and gestured to the size of himself and the other party, his eyes were straight. Mr. Tom. Link nodded. Goo ha ha ha, cute little guys. Tom reached out and rubbed the heads of the two little ones, and said to Link with a smile, "Welcome to Tom's studio as a guest, go eat something delicious, and let's start the party." Speaking of which, he put the two little ones on his shoulders while exclaiming, and walked to the room with a big laugh. Although there were not many people, the gathering was very lively. The enthusiastic Tom made the party atmosphere cheerful, and the seclusion of the garbage dump made everyone not need to worry about unexpected people. The previous misunderstanding with Fram was also resolved in the punishment of drinking 3 glasses of juice with Luoziazi. A group of people laughed. During the small talk, Link learned many things from Tom's mouth. 9 years ago, Tom was judged by the world government for making one piece's ship, and then he lived in seclusion in a junkyard with 2 apprentices and began to design and build sea trains. I have to say that Link was very interested in the technology of the sea train, and then Tom took them to see the sea train rocketman. Link undoubtedly admired Tom in front of him. As the master of the blueprint for the Pluto, one of the 3 gods, the one in front of him is definitely a figure who can compete with Vegapunk in the field of shipbuilding. Ha 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 ha, I don't want to leave here. Listening to the purpose of Shanks' visit, Tom reached out and patted the rocketman next to him, pouring out rum and saying, "After I came out of Fishman Island, I devoted my life to shipbuilding. I have spent most of my life here. Shipbuilding Island has become my other hometown. I want to make her better. Have you seen this big guy? In the future, it will pull a carload of tourists and goods across the islands. This is my masterpiece." "That's a pity." Shanks shrugged, looked at Espagu and Fram behind Tom with a smile, and said, "What about you two, Espagu? It's so big outside, come with me." Espagu hesitated for a moment, but Fram beside him curled his lips and said, "No. What's so good about being a pirate? We have to stay and help the teacher complete the sea train." When Espagu heard this, he also smiled apologetically at Shanks. Unlucky, unlucky. Run for nothing." Shanks scratched his head irritably, and suddenly collapsed to the ground, holding up the wine bottle, shouting, "Don't worry, drink and drink." Mother Coco, what is your Fishman Island like? After learning that Shanks was here to invite Tom, Link knew that Shanks was doomed to fail. At this time, he ignored Shanks' depression, and turned to ask Granny Coco, the mermaid who was serving the food. He didn't forget one of the purposes of his trip. Yes, yes. Are all Murlocs as big and strong as Grandpa Tom? BABY5 asked curiously. Ha ha ha, Fishman Island is a beautiful and magical place, located at the bottom of your destination Chambord Archipelago. Under Link's questioning, Granny Cockalo talked about the magic of Fishman Island, the beauty of young fish, and the giant sea kings, which caused the two little ones to burst into exclamations, and their eyes lit up. Brother Link, Brother Link! Are we going to Fishman Island? I want to go. I really want to go. BABY5 said excitedly, pulling on Link's shirt. Of course, if you have a chance, go and see it. Link remembered that there was a very wise and glamorous beauty fortune-teller on Fishman Island. His fortune-telling was 100% accurate, and he seemed to be the dragon's sister. Goo-ha-ha-ha, Fishman Island is worth visiting. But there is a place on the island that you absolutely shouldn't go to. Tom looked at Link and advised, there are mermaids who are close to humans on Fishman Island, and naturally there are also those who hate humans. Fishman Street is a gathering of Murlocs who hate humans. Of course, if you really encounter difficulties there, you can find a little guy named Fisher Tiger, and it may be helpful to report my name. Fisher Tiger. Link's eyes lit up when he heard this. He didn't expect to hear this unexpected name in the mouth of Old Tom. Originally, I just wanted to see if the relationship between Old Man Tom and Fishman Island could be in touch, but reading www.yuyugonshu.com turned out to be unexpectedly happy. Goo-ha-ha-ha, that boy Tiger is the leader of the Fisherman Street, but he's also a grumpy guy who likes to take risks. The party at Old Tom's place lasted until night fell and everyone decided to rest here for the night. The garbage dump seemed very quiet at night. Link, who had been drinking, should have rested early, but he was a little tangled because he got the news of Tiger from Tom's mouth. Sitting on a high hill made of scrap iron, the night wind blows. Link drank the rum alone, looking at the lights in the center of Shipbuilding Island in the distance, thinking about what was in his heart. He knew very well that this year, the year 1507 of the Haiwan calendar, the grumpy tiger in Tom's mouth would abruptly climb to the red soil continent with both hands, make a riot in Mary Joa, and do the feat of saving thousands of Tianlong slaves. It is precisely because of this that the three Hancock sisters were able to escape. Thinking of the tragic ending of Tiger's death because of the Navy's sneak attack and refusing to transfuse human blood, Link sighed helplessly. Perhaps, I got this guy's phone bug from Tom to change his fate? But this guy is a stubborn, die-hard hater. Link was a little tangled. He was a guy who hated trouble, but what he decided had to be done. After struggling for a while, he finally made up his mind. For the sake of saving my wife, help this guy. Isn't it too embarrassing to not change something as a transmigrator? Standing up, Link prepared to leave. When he entered his eyes, he saw a sudden fire in a slum street outside the garbage dump.